just so it's all ready to go when we start at 5:30.
Zach, how many people do we need for quorum?
5, I think, and we've got more than that.
Nice.
Right?
Hi, Carol. Are you all ready for your talk?
I think so.
Cool beans.
So I actually have a question for you or for Zach. So it's been better for me to Zoom on my phone. So I'm talking through my phone right now. But I might try to join with a different laptop later to do the slideshow. Does that work?
That should be fine, yeah.
And if not, I'll we'll go to plan B and I'll send
You
it
can
to
do
or
that.
something.
I have a little slide to share about Ching Ming, which is right before when you would do your talk. So, and then I just made some random slide about landscape architecture. So we can put that up and talk vaguely and while you get ready.
Perfect. Okay. And I will go ahead.
Everything is ready to go as soon as it's time to start. At least tech-wise for public meeting stuff.
Zach, are we good?
Yep.
Awesome. So tonight's gavel is my third grade math whiz multiplication table trophy. I will now call to order the April 15th meeting of the Salem Historic Landmark Commission. Will the recorder please take roll call?
Commissioner Cunningham?
Here.
Commissioner Kurteman?
Here.
Commissioner Fuller?
Here.
Commissioner Mulvihill? Commissioner Ponce?
Here.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas? Commissioner Zimmerman?
Here.
Commissioner French absent, excused. Commissioner Mulvihill indicated that they would be late. And I'll do one more call for Commissioner Thomas. Absent. We have established quorum.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. The commission will now hear testimony from the public concerning items not on the agenda. Zach, is there anyone wishing to speak who signed up at this time?
We do not have anyone who has signed up for comment. No.
Perfect. So seeing no one in the waiting room, we'll now consider the approval of the minutes from the March 18th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Oh, go ahead, Carol.
All right.
It's okay.
Who was? Wait, Brett, was that you?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve.
Okay, awesome. Commissioner, is there a second?
I'll second.
Awesome. So Commissioner Fuller moves to approve the minutes and Commissioner Zimmerman seconds. Are there any corrections? All right. All those in favor of approving the March 18th minutes, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, no. Awesome. So the minutes are approved. With that, switch my papers here. I will now open the public hearing for historic review case HIS 21-02 for the property at 1500 Summer Street Southeast. Would the recorder please read the hearing procedure statement into the record?
This is a public hearing to consider case number HIS 21-02 for property located at 1500 Summer Street Southeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code, Chapter 230.035, Standards for New Constructions in Residential Historic Districts. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Historic Landmarks Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the hearings officer on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Historic Landmarks Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts that any commissioner would like to declare at this time? I cannot see all of you guys, so just speak up if you do have something. All right, hearing nothing. Kimberly, may we now have the staff presentation?
Thank you, Tracy. So good evening. I'm Kimberly Fitzgerald, the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. I'd like to enter the staff report, its attachments, and all public testimony into the record. So this property that under consideration tonight is currently a vacant lot within the Gady Hill Bushes Pasture Park National Register Historic District. You can see a bit more detail here in this slide. It's located just to the south of the park. And I just want to clarify that the right-of-way for LaFell does not directly abut the property's northern property line. The only right-of-way that abuts the property itself is Summer Street, located along the eastern boundary of the lot. Here are a few pictures of how the lot looks today. It's been partially cleared in preparation for redevelopment. And unlike some of our cases, we don't have a whole lot of history about this property because it's not been developed. But according to the original nomination that was with the Historic District in 1986, this lot was owned by Vernon and Mary Sackett, who lived at 1510 Winter Street. And Vernon was an insurance salesman, and they just never developed the property. And at the time of listing, this lot was identified, of course, as not contributing to the district. So the proposal, I'm going to walk you through it. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 2-story house with a partially subterranean garage. The proposed design is a typical Craftsman with architectural detailing such as squared porch columns, deep roof overhangs, brackets, and knee braces. These slides show details of the north elevation there at the top of your screen and the east elevation fronting Summer Street at the bottom there. And these show the south elevation and the west elevations. This slide shows some of the Craftsman bungalows found throughout the district. This was part of the applicant's submittal, showing some of those similar Craftsman architectural details that you can see reflected in their design. So this is the proposed site plan. I'm going to walk you through it a little bit more because there's a few things I just want to point out. So the applicant's proposing to save 2 existing oaks located on the eastern side of the lot. And you can also see the proposed garage here on the south side. A portion of this is partially underground, minimizing its visibility. And there's also a recessed second floor there on the west side of the site where the site is sloped. There's no fencing and no accessory structures proposed. I just want to talk a little bit about the driveway. So the grade of the driveway, as I understand it, will be 2 feet above the existing grade, so it can meet the existing grade there at Summer Street. So while there's not going to be any need for additional excavation there in the tree drip line, some fill will need to be brought in. And if that's compacted, it might increase stress on the tree roots. The applicant could choose to use a pervious material just on the section of the driveway that is on the private property, but they would need to work with Public Works to ensure where the driveway meets the right of way, that there's current standards. So I'm not proposing any sort of recommended condition there. I just wanted to point that out. But I'll talk to you a little bit more when I go through the standards. I am going to look at suggesting a condition about the foundation piers under the porch, just so that, because that area is also within the drip line and has the potential to have a long-term effect on the health of those trees. So if there's pier foundation, it would reduce that impact there. So here's a view of the proposed retaining wall with a view from the garage. So looking from the man door towards the park. So 2 retaining walls are proposed. The southern retaining wall ranges in height from 2 feet to 12 feet where it meets the garage. And the western retaining wall ranges in height from 4 feet 6 inches to 11 in height where it meets the garage. And you can see here, I'm going to go to the next screen. These are a few more views of the retaining wall. You can kind of see where portions of the retaining wall are staggered in height there. So the proposed new building will be clad in a composite siding. The chimney, of course, will be brick, and the roof will be clad in dark gray black architectural asphalt shingles. The windows will be wood clad. So now I'm going to go through the criteria and the findings. So first we're going to talk about the materials. So as I just went over, the applicant is proposing a wood composite siding. The windows will be wood clad, and so therefore staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find that these materials are similar in scale, proportion, and finish to those found on residential historic resources within the district, and that SRC 230035A has been met for this proposal. So for this criteria relating to design, the applicant is proposing a new 2-story Craftsman bungalow. And as you saw earlier, houses within the district are typically 2 stories in height, and there are quite a few examples of this Craftsman bungalow, specifically in the Gady Hill Bushes Pasture Park District. So this particular structure is unique because of how it's been placed on the lot. But because of this unique approach to design, even though it is slightly larger in scale due to the recessed second floor and the subterranean garage, the impact of both that scale and height of the structure has been minimized. So with the style and that reduced impact, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find that this proposed new building is compatible with the surrounding district and similar in height and style, thereby meeting SRC 230035B 1A through F. So as I mentioned, the applicant has made a concerted effort to ensure that this proposed house is designed in such a way to fit on this unique steeply sloped lot in a way that allows it to be compatible with the existing neighborhood. There are 2 oak trees proposed for retention on the eastern portion of the site abutting Summer Street. And in order to better meet this criterion and ensure that these oak trees have the best chance for survival, staff recommends agency adopt the following condition of approval. So in order to reduce the potential adverse effect on construction of on the existing oak trees proposed for retention on the eastern portion of the property, the applicant shall utilize a pier style foundation under the eastern porch instead of a traditional foundation wall or slab. So the building pressure is limited to these pier locations. And moving on, so staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find there's no solar panels, no accessory structures or fencing proposed, and that SRC 23035C, D, and F don't apply. And now moving on to the criteria associated with the retaining wall. So the applicant is proposing to construct a retaining wall of concrete, which is a material that was available during the period of significance for the district. So staff recommends that SRC 230035E1 has been met. The applicant has proposed 2 main retaining walls, both of which are proposed at the rear of the property, and they range in height from 2 feet to 12 feet. In order to ensure that this criterion is better met, staff recommends that the HLC adopt condition 2, which reads, the proposed retaining wall shall be terraced so that no section of the retaining wall exceeds 4 feet in height. So now comments. So comments were received from the Neighborhood Association, SCAN, the Historic Preservation Parks and Gardens Committee, as well as from Richard Pine, Mary Ann Spradlin, and John Christensen. The Public Works Department has submitted comments relating to the requirements that the applicant has at the time of building permit submittal and ensuring that all applicable public works permits are required at the time prior to development. They have stated that there are no areas of landside susceptibility on the subject property, and there are no wetland areas on the property. They also verified that there's no city park or right-of-way tree conflicts that were identified, and also clarified that the proposed development is exempt from constructing a city curb and sidewalk pursuant to SRC 803-040. The Planning Division clarified that at the time of dwelling permit submittal, then the deed history from the date of parcel creation has to be submitted to establish this lot as a legal lot. And then the Planning Division also clarified that SRC 808-030 exempts the oak trees on the lot from the tree removal permit requirements, although they did encourage the preservation of the mature white oaks on the site. And of course, the Building and Safety Division indicated that building permits are required, and some clarification that all construction within 3 feet of the property lines requires the 1 hour fire resistant construction. So staff recommends the Landmarks Commission approve the proposal with the following conditions. Condition 1, in order to reduce the potential adverse effect of the construction on the existing oak trees proposed for retention on the eastern portion of the property, the applicant shall utilize a pier style foundation under the eastern porch instead of a traditional foundation wall or slab, so the building pressure is limited to these pier locations. And then condition 2, the proposed retaining wall shall be terraced so that no section of the retaining wall exceeds 4 feet in height. That concludes the staff report. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see people. Tracy, is that okay?
Thank you, Kimberly. You know me too well. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? I think this is our first new build that we've had in a long time. So no question is a dumb question.
Just a quick interjection, sorry. I just wanted to let the record show that Commissioner Mulvihill joined the meeting at 5:35 p.m.
Awesome. Welcome. One Zoom to the next from what I hear. So Commissioner Kerdeman.
Yeah, thank you. So Kimberly, you had a slide that made it look like Bush's Park goes into this lot. I don't know if it was highlighting the district or something. So it was like one of the first slides.
Let me share my.
Sorry, Tracy.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I think it might be the vicinity map.
Is it that one? I don't know. I can walk through where the property lines are. So this one, and I don't know if you can you see my arrow?
Yeah.
So the property line is right there. Oh, poo, sorry. Oh. Good night, nurse. I am going the wrong way. Forgive me. So this is another one that shows the property line highlighted so you can see where it is. So the short answer is that it does not go in the park. The park and the property are separated on the line that you can see there.
Okay, my apologies. The map I'm thinking of is attachment A in the packet, the vicinity map. It has a hashed out boundary, and it looked like.
Oh, yeah. I didn't
into-
include that in this presentation, but
Okay, yeah,
yeah, I know there was some confusion, which is why I wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
And it is kind of confusing because I think some folks assumed that LaFell, the right of way also abutted that north end, so that there would need to be some street improvements made at the time of development, but that's not the case.
Right. Yeah. I guess when I originally saw that the hashed out areas marking the historic district and this property is included in that, I guess I assumed that that was a historic boundary of Bush's Pasture Park. But I saw on the Sanborns and what year?
Oh, I understand your question. You were
Yeah.
wondering whether this property was originally part of the park. Yeah, the
Yeah.
answer is no.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I that's what I was seeing, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something because that one map showing the historic district threw me off. So
Oh, okay. Sorry
thank
about
you.
that. Sure.
No, it's not your fault. Thank you.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for staff? Commissioner Zimmerman.
Yeah, hi. My question's kind of the same kind of discussion as the first question. So is that the north end of the property there abutting LaFell, is that like a city right of way, or is there a separate property owner who owns that little sliver there?
You want me to bring the map up again? That's part of the park. So there is no separate property owner. That's the park. There is
Okay.
no right of way on that north end.
So the
Wanna
park
look at
just is on the other side of LaFell for that little strip.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can share. Do you want me to share again? I can share again so you can look at it. Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm not sure why it evolved this way, but so you can see there's Winter Street and LaFell, and it just terminates right there, and then LaFell picks up again over here. This is the park. There's no right of way there. It won't be developed. There's no plans as far as I checked with Public Works and Parks, and they're not planning on developing that.
Okay. So I guess that must just been like a pathway between the road and that other parking lot. Okay.
Yeah, that's a pedestrian pathway, this right here. Yeah,
Okay.
that's been there a while, and there's no change.
Okay, yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. Thanks, Kimberly.
Sure.
Are there any other commissioners or questions for staff, Commissioner Mulvihill? I'm really quick. Zach, do you want to note Commissioner Thomas showed up?
I was going to say, for the record, Commissioner Thomas joined the meeting at 5:48 p.m.
Sorry. Now Commissioner Mulvihill.
Thank you, and apologize for being late. I did get off my last Zoom call as soon as I could. And if you've said this already in your presentation, Kimberly, I apologize, but do the property owners object to the two conditions you recommend, or are they on board with them?
Well, they're here and they
Okay.
can speak for themselves as far as I know. They don't object. And in fact, some of their design already speaks to, as I understand it, the conditions. But I think once they have an opportunity to speak, they can tell you themselves.
Thank you.
So I have a question.
Commissioner Ponce.
So just a question general on utilities. With the foundation or the house being recessed like that, depending on where the sewer is, they could have a gravity or they could have a pump system. I just don't know if that's a factor for them.
I think they can speak to that when it's time for questions. That wasn't those details weren't part of our review.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Luckily, historic sewers are outside of the commission's purview, but Commissioner Kurdeman.
Yeah, Kimberly, with this property being within a historic district, does the city have any requirements or recommendations well, I'm sure we have recommendations, but any requirements for doing any survey work for buried archaeological or structural features?
Interesting. Yeah, so just as part of our overall policies that are in the process of being finalized relating to our archaeological compliance and our archaeological policies and procedures. So part of this, so this is located within our CRPZ zone, our Cultural Resources Protection Zone, which is essentially a high probability area. So what that just means is that we don't require any survey because that would only be required for publicly funded projects. That's how we've worked it out. On private property, at the time of building permit and prior to any ground disturbing activity, then I'll provide them with an IDP, inadvertent discovery plan. And then as you know, our most recent one has pretty pictures in it, so they can know what to look for in case anything comes up. But no survey ahead of time is required.
Great, thank you. I like hearing that there'll be an IDP.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for staff? Kimberly, I had one question about the first condition, speaking to the trees. I'm just wondering if the city arborist had any thoughts about the protection of those trees. I'm sure he's really busy right now with cleanup still happening, but if he thought that was a reasonable condition.
Yeah, he was actually the one. I had spoken to him. He had taken a look at this proposal during our request for comments, and he had actually recommended that.
Awesome, that's great. Any other questions for staff? Wonderful. So I will now call for the applicant's testimony. If you can please state your name and address for the record, or your business address if you're representing the applicant. Please note that your testimony is limited to 15 minutes.
Hi, my name is Sarah Harris. I'm with Red House Green Designs. My business address is a PO box, so it's 8024. PO Box 8024, Salem, Oregon, 97301. Before I get started, however, the owners would actually like to make just kind of a brief statement more at large, if that's okay. So that would be Mike and Jennifer Davis.
Absolutely, yeah. If you guys could introduce yourself and state your address for the record.
Hi, Mike and Jennifer Davis, PO Box 13568, Salem. We are in fact property owners. We are both longtime Salem residents. Both long users of the park, both as younger people and now as older. We actually probably use it way more now than when we were younger. We have lived in the area close to the park for the last 4 years. And we've had that particular property under contract for about that time. So we've been maintaining it. We picked Sarah through a business colleague to work with us. She had a little familiarity with the last project that was done in the area, new construction with the foot clinic. And she spent a lot of time dealing with us and our particulars and trying to make the thing conform, look like it's potentially been here for a long time for people that maybe aren't familiar with the area, and kind of fit in with that family feel and not be an obtrusive looking thing or site for people that are visiting the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so in addition to one of the questions somebody asked earlier about the conditions of approval, condition of approval number 1 was already something we had planned on with the pier foundations, just so we could protect the trees, because that is one of the biggest goals for the owners, is to protect those 2 trees to every possible, extent. Condition 2, yes and no. So for the southern retaining wall that runs alongside the driveway, that one sits right at the property, or right at the setback line, so it's 5 feet. So tiering it in both directions would be a little bit difficult, and also we think very visually distracting. So the goal there was to have the taller retaining wall, but plant it with evergreen vines. They're thinking of a clematis, something like that, that would be green all year round. And the goal would be just to grow as much as we can on that to make it kind of look like the hill, and then maintain the natural topography that hill currently has as it comes down towards Summer Street from the southwest corner of the property. In the backyard, we currently do have a larger retaining wall shown. The original intent of that is because there is a 3rd white oak back there that we were trying to figure out if we can save. Through further investigation, it's unlikely that we'll be able to save it. So tiering the foundation, or so tiering the retaining walls and kind of stepping them back is something that the owners are perfectly okay with, as long as it's something that, you know, the Historic Landmarks Commission likes as far as a visual effect is concerned. Other than that, I'm happy to answer questions, but we don't really have any concerns.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicants? Commissioner Ponce, did you want to ask your question?
Here. So the question was, you know, just location of utilities in general, but sewer. If you have to trench, you know, it could endanger other trees or the two trees you're trying to protect. So that's the question is, you know, have you kind of figured out a route that safely navigates to the street?
Haven't got into that specific detail, but I have had a couple builders look at it with me. And again, I would say that our intent was from the beginning to try to save those two front trees. We've designed a lot of things around it, which is incorporating, you know, higher building costs to do so. One was the garage. So realizing that, yes, there's going to be other things involved in that, potentially that's gonna arise when we get to that point. So the intent is within reason, we're going to do what we need to do to save those and work around them.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicants?
I've got a quick one.
Yeah, Commissioner Fuller.
Thank you. You were saying on the diagram that you were looking to possibly keep the third tree, and that was not something that could be done. What is the reason that it could not be done?
So the biggest issue, so the front two trees are great because they actually sit below the lowest, or they're at the lowest grade of the site. So anything that we do is over them. So other than a concern of weight on the roots, we're okay. With the tree in back, the building, because what's shown of the actual outline of the tree, unless you have the tree diagram in front of you, you can see that the root protection zone is quite extensive. And so it actually comes into the house footprint itself. But in addition to that, there would be a retaining wall that would essentially be cutting through what I assume will be major roots, because again, that tree sits above development. I think we are still going forward with the goal of trying to save that tree, but with the understanding that, you know, if they start excavating and they cut through a major root, that the tree has to come out because it will be a safety hazard.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Kerdeman.
I want to say I really appreciate you know, the efforts going forward with trying to save some of the oaks, and that's great. That's fantastic. And have you looked into maybe harvesting some of the acorns off of the oaks, and in hopes of maybe planting some more around the area or on the property? Obviously you don't want to plant in areas that will eventually destroy your work, but as a way of just keeping oaks inhabiting that area in a safe and healthy way.
That's a good idea. We have wondered what else we could do in that regard. So that's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think harvesting some of those oaks. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying I was going to second there.
Yeah, and harvesting some of the oaks, you know, those will be offspring of the oaks that are already there. So the likelihood of them being successful is a little higher as well. So.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for the applicants? Commissioner Cottingham?
Excuse me. Yeah, I have a question as far as the response to the terraced wall. Was it the one that might be hard to do less than 4 feet? Can you explain which one that was again on the drawing?
Yeah, so let me pull up my drawings as well. So if you're looking at the site plan that was provided,
Yes.
It's the southernmost retaining wall. It runs alongside the south side of the driveway. It sits at about 5 feet from the property line, right at the setback. The what would be difficult with doing the 4 feet is because we could do 4 feet coming, how do I put this? Coming from Summer Street and going back, we could tier retaining walls at 4 feet, but that would still leave sections of retaining walls directly adjacent to the driveway that would be much taller, because we could basically create steps, but we wouldn't be able to tier them in both directions, I guess. That was my thought, at least when I was trying to lay it out in my mind.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with the site too, and I know the hill's kind of coming from both directions there.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, hearing no additional questions. Thank you all. Thank you for attending and all the hard work that you guys have put in. We'll continue our conversation. So hopefully you guys can stay on. Is there anyone here representing the neighborhood association?
We do not have anyone from the neighborhood association at the meeting.
Wonderful. And then is there anyone who signed up on the sign up sheet?
We do not have any members of the public signed up for commentary.
All right, perfect. Is there anyone else who would like to testify that did not sign up before the meeting?
We do have an intern in the public, but I'm assuming that they don't want to comment. They're just here to observe. So
Is that Juniper?
yes.
I was wondering. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that the applicant would like to offer? You guys do not have to.
I think we've said everything. Again, our only concern is the one condition being able to be met along the south property line.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have additional questions for staff? I do have one. Kimberly, so I'm going to make you share your screen again. Do you mind just showing, maybe showing us where that retaining wall is, especially on the south side? I just want to make sure I'm totally grasping where it is.
Sure. I'll do, let's see. Bear with me. So here's the site plan, and this is that south wall. Did you also want to see the renderings too?
Yeah, if you could, I think that'd be really helpful.
You'll have to, forgive me, I'm gonna go there.
No worries.
So the top one on the screen is the proposed south elevation. So you can see it's low in the front part of the yard and then jumps up to that high. Well, that's the garage. Let me go back to the other renderings as well. And I'm going to go to the retaining wall details, which are in the other direction. Again, my apologies. Let me just actually do it this way because that'll be faster. That's probably, these are probably the better renderings. So that image there, those two on the left side of your screen, show that southern wall abutting the garage.
And our condition would ask that it be more stepped, or sorry, I just want to make sure.
Right, similar to the one already proposed there on the northern property line is already stepped like that.
Okay.
And again, if reading, it's about the criteria itself. But you do have the discretion as the Landmarks Commission to not adopt. You have flexibility to adopt what you think makes sense.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate it. Are there any other questions for staff at this time?
I'm very sorry. May I interject while she has this image up?
I say yes. Is that allowed, Tom? Okay,
That's
go for
allowed.
it, Sarah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. So the retaining wall that's in back is shown and it's stepped like that, but it still doesn't meet the criteria that Kimberly is talking about because the highest portion of it is a full 11-foot wall. So that one in back would actually be a series of retaining walls that moves to the right, kind of against the back, so that each one wouldn't be more than 4 feet in height. So it basically create a bunch of like stepped planters, kind of would be the look. The one on the left, inevitably we would just, if you're looking at the very far left image, basically everywhere you see a plant, if we tiered that one, there would kind of just be a retaining wall that goes all the way up the hill to try to hold everything back, which is why we propose doing a slightly larger retaining, or, you know, kind of streamlined tall retaining wall that we could plant with clematis or something that would take over, so it just looked like it was part of the hill, as opposed to having a bunch of smaller concrete pieces that are, well, personally, I think a lot more visible. That's all. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions for staff, or does anyone need any other clarification about this, the retaining wall, since we've got it up? All right, I'm not seeing anything. So thank you, Kimberly. Last chance, guys. I'm going to close the public hearing. All right, so I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening the hearing. I will now call for a motion.
Do you want me to share the conditions slide, the final slide?
That'd probably be helpful, yes. And we can keep discussing once we have the motion on the floor, so.
So somebody could just move staff recommendation, and if you get a second, you can discuss it and then amend the motion if you want to drop the condition or change the condition.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept or to approve the proposal with the following 2 conditions recommended by staff.
And is there a second?
This is Patty. I'll second it.
Awesome, thank you. So Commissioner Kerneman moved and Commissioner Mulvihill seconded that we approve staff recommendations with the 2 conditions. Commissioner Kerneman, to your motion.
Yeah, I'll speak more towards the conditions. The first condition, it looks like they've already incorporated that one into the plans. And thank you for the clarification on how rather than it being stepped, it's more of a, planter style, so more of a platform looking. And then for condition 2, I'm proposing that they maintain that the retaining wall does not exceed 4 feet in height as the code currently exists. I do really appreciate the vegetation proposal. However, I'm just not really sold on reasoning behind needing to bypass this portion of the code for that section.
Thank you, Commissioner Kerneman. Commissioner Mulvihill?
Everything Jessica said, I was going to echo as well. I was a little nervous about condition 2, but I wasn't convinced either. So I would support it as is.
And thank you, Commissioner Mulvihill. Is there any other discussion about the current motion? Commissioner Ponce.
So the wall that runs to the south, or on the south side, it's shown in those elevations as being running with grade, just above grade on an angle. And the other one is certainly stepped, horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. The other one is matching the grade or running with the grade. Is there some adjustment we would make in that obviously that those conditions are different, and it didn't look like it would be 4 feet, quite different. And it's probably fine. It just, that condition seems to fit one solution and they're providing two.
Right. Yeah, Kimberly, and their the renderings that we saw were not the 4-foot terrace, correct?
Well, they didn't,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're as designed, as proposed.
Okay. Perfect. Is there any other discussion about the motion? Right, I'm not seeing anyone. Yeah, I think I'm in agreement on the conditions. I really appreciate all of the efforts to preserve those 2 oak trees. And I think that's going to be lovely. I agree about the retaining wall. And maybe there's another solution out there that we just haven't thought of to kind of maybe find a compromise that meets our code and also allows for that slope. So I know no one wants to come back to the Historic Landmark Commission, but you know, if there's something else out there, but yeah, I agree. I think that, thank you. I think that that condition is appropriate, kind of based on my understanding. So is there any other discussion? Commissioner Kurdeman.
Yeah, I would like to echo exactly what you said, Tracy. You know, if another proposal or another design change or something, another compromise is found, I definitely encourage coming back. And yeah, I know don't want to have to come back, but at the same time, though, you know, if it's going to help meet both parties, you know, halfway and give you that look to your construction that you've put so much time and effort into, to make it how you'd be happy with it and seeing it all the time while giving the support the structural support it needs and the visual representation, then you know, it just might be worth it. But anyways, I just wanted to echo that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kurdeman. Wonderful. So I will now call for a vote. All those in favor of approving staff recommendations with the 2 conditions regarding the oak tree and retaining wall, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right, the motion passes. Thank you, Mike, Jennifer, and Sarah, all for coming tonight. We really appreciate the plans are beautiful. The renderings are great. It was a really clear package, which always makes our job a lot easier. So we really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you guys for taking some time on a Thursday. And you can feel free to stay on. We talk about exciting things, but we won't hold it against you if you log off. So
We want to say thank you as well. And we would love to have visitors come by through the process. So if you would like to do that, we would enjoy that.
awesome. Thank you. That sounds great. We love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a great
Kim.
night.
Sarah, thank
Great, yeah, great project.
Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. Just really quick, I want to say, Commissioner Ponce, I really appreciate your perspective. I never would have thought about like sewer and gravity and things like that. I was like, oh, look at the siding. Seems really nice. So I'm glad we've got someone in the construction side of the house on our commission.
No. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a great insight too. I feel like all of us kind of bring different aspects. I saw a vacant lot and got excited. So
That's right. Wonderful. All right. So public hearing is closed. Congrats on getting through new construction. And we will now move on to our action items. We have the Historic Compliance Subcommittee and a Historic Landmark Commissioner member appointment. Kimberly.
Thank you, Tracy. So you should have a memo in your packet. I'm just going to briefly provide a little bit of background and then a request for what we need So our existing historic compliance and enforcement policy, which I think was also attached to that memo, was adopted back in 2011, and it's outdated for staff and we need to update it. So if you recall, we did adopt it as part of our work plan. And so staff is establishing an advisory subcommittee to help provide input and feedback regarding the components for this particular update. And it'll include staff representatives, representatives from interested neighborhood associations, and then other interested stakeholders. So we're just asking that we have one Landmarks Commission member be on this committee. So that's the request this evening. I'm going to stop sharing unless you want to keep looking at this. So Tracy, you can see things.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly. I'm sorry to be a diva about how I view Zoom.
Never feel bad about bugging me about it because I'll forget it's up.
I won't. Yeah, so we thought we would kind of just open it up and see if anyone is interested in volunteering to be on the Historic Compliance Advisory Committee. If there's someone whose passion is code enforcement or wanting to work with the neighborhood associations, just thought we'd open it up for, again, someone to raise their hand.
So I'm kind of going to raise my hand, but not all the way yet.
Okay.
This is something that I think I could maybe add in sharing the commission's goals, but I just don't feel that I have enough background with the commission to be that voice for the group. So is there someone that's more a veteran that we could partner with, and maybe I could do that? But just my interest is there, but I don't want to try and run before I can walk here. So
Kimberly, would it be possible for us to have kind of two members on for a little, like for half the time, and then after a couple months when Commissioner Ponce feels more comfortable, that second member could kind of bow out and let him run?
Sure. And I would also say that, you don't need to be a veteran to help us with this. It's actually honestly a bit better that you have fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. And then part of what we normally do, you'll see a little bit later on in the meeting, is that you would report back to the larger commission so that you would never be fully alone. You can just share what, we're all talking about. And if, but either way is fine. If two of you want to join on, we can accommodate that. Whatever you're comfortable with.
All right. Well, if that's how I can help, and I think I might be able to, I'll give the full hand then.
Awesome. You can't take it back once it's been raised. Yeah, no, Commissioner Ponce, I think you'd be wonderful on this, and I will offer to be your backup if needed, or if you want to talk something out, feel free to let anyone know, but I'll be your, I don't know, your training wheels if you feel like you need them. But Kimberly, do we need to do a formal motion to appoint? Okay, so do I have a motion to appoint Commissioner Ponce to serve on the Historic Compliance Advisory Committee?
I'll move to appoint Commissioner Ponce to the Historic Compliance Advisory Committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Awesome. So Commissioner Cottingham moved and Commissioner Zimmerman seconded to appoint Commissioner Ponce to the Historic Compliance Advisory Committee. Commissioner Cottingham, to your motion.
I think, as Kimberly said, this is definitely something you don't need to. It's okay that you're new, and including. It's great that you volunteered so quickly. It's a good way to get involved and bring fresh eyes, and then also kind of learn more about the different neighborhoods and the people we're working with. And it's something I'm interested in and don't have capacity for, so I look forward to hearing about it.
All right, great, thank you.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
I appreciate Commissioner Ponce's enthusiasm to dive right in, even though he's new on the commission. I think it's great to have all of the different perspectives. I think we've been pretty lucky in my time, at least on the HLC. We've had all these different backgrounds, different experiences, and I think that makes the group better as a whole. So I appreciate the interest and willingness to take on this task.
Is there any other discussion?
Is there a reason why no one else volunteered? Not telling me. No, just thank you. Thank you for that.
You can bring this up when somebody tries to ask you to write for the newsletter. Then you can be like, but I'm on the other committee.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I just agree with what everyone said. Commissioner Ponce, I think you're going to be great on this role, and I'm excited to see our new members really stepping up and getting involved and engaged. I think that's wonderful. That's probably why the rest of us didn't, volunteer. We all volunteered for, when we were new members, and we're still carrying all of that out. So awesome. So all those in favor of appointing Commissioner Ponce to the Historic Compliance Advisory Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. All right, the motion unanimously passes. Congratulations, Commissioner Ponce.
Great, thank you.
And with that, we will move into the discussion items. So the first thing we have is the Ching Ming Proclamation from Mayor Bennett.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just share a little bit about our great event, which Andy and his wife were able to attend, and Andy was able to record and live stream it. It was our third annual Ching Ming Festival celebration. As you know, we weren't able to do it last year because of, the pandemic had just begun, right? Can you believe it? It's been a year. And the mayor prepared this proclamation, which you have in your packet, and it's also on the screen. And it was just exceptionally meaningful, I think, especially for me, given the latest really difficult situations, not just in Salem, but, around the country with Asian hate. So it was really wonderful to do something positive and supportive for this community. So just really happy that we were able to do it. And I'm going to go to the next slide so that Carol can kind of get ready.
Yeah, so we will jump to Historic Preservation Month. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I already, sorry. Is Historic Preservation Month?
Yes, because we're going to skip Carol's Cultural Landscapes for a second.
Okay, cool.
Yes, yeah, Historic Preservation Month. Take it away.
So, yay. All right, so what you've got on your screen now, as you recall, we do our annual awards in May, and we have the brand new Chairperson's Award, which we awarded for the first time last year for the Jason Lee Archaeology Project, and then the Ben Maxwell Award, which we've been giving out for quite a while, and the Virginia Green Award. So the Ben Maxwell Award is typically for a preservation or restoration project. And in your packet, or no, actually it was in the supplemental information that we sent along earlier this week. We sent a list of HLC cases that came before you last year. But I actually wanted to share with you a few ideas for the Ben Maxwell Award, and that these were projects that weren't approved at Landmarks last year, but were finished last year. So this is 1566 Court. So they did some restoration work on the main part of the building, but then they also were the ones that built that greenhouse. I don't know if you remember it. It was Juliana Inman and John Poole project there in the Court Chemeketa district. So that's I think a good example of a residential project. And then for a commercial project, you've probably seen it downtown, 260 State, the Cause development, the Nishioka building. So those are the ideas that I've got. And then we had already in the suggested for, again, I defer to Tracy and Carol, right, and the rest of the commission, the Riverfront Amphitheater, especially for their early coordination with the tribes, in the design. I know they do still have a little bit more work to do to finalize that particular project.
I have to talk to my Zoom.
They've completed all the underground work, and they just did a really good job coordinating on that. And then the Virginia Green Award, of course, the Salem Culture and Heritage Forum. We recommend. They've been doing a lot.
Want to watch a movie?
Especially this last year.
Carol, you're not on mute, but I would like to watch a movie.
Okay. I just had someone run in here.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to let you know.
And then,
Thanks.
and then we don't have to do it. This is one of our ideas for our celebrating of the Landscape Architecture Month and Cultural Landscapes. But one thought, of course, is the Lord Inscriber Conservancy, if you felt like doing that this year. So that's my suggestions. I can stop sharing my screen so you can talk amongst yourselves if you would like to do that. I know that
Awesome.
makes it easier.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kimberly. Is there any, sorry, Kimberly was talking about allergies earlier and now she's jinxed me.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Is there any discussion? I do have one question for you really quick, Kimberly, regarding like the Cultural Landscape Award, and maybe Carol's presentation in a little bit will offer some insight on this, but is that something that the Riverfront Amphitheater might also qualify for?
Maybe. Yeah, I guess I didn't even think about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Not that I'm not happy to give it a chairperson's award, but maybe that would be maybe a good start for the cultural landscape. But yeah, is there any other or any discussion idea we can throw? If you know of another project, please feel free to share.
I have a quick question. What was the Lord Inscriber Conservancy that you were talking about? I'm unfamiliar with that.
It's so Lord Inscriber were two female landscape architects in the 20s and 30s. Again, they did a lot in the Willamette Valley, and it's a nonprofit organization. I think they own one of the properties that Lord Inscriber, I think one of them lived there, and they did all the landscaping there. And so they have public tours and they do a lot of public outreach. Sometimes you'll see them at, when we could have it, at the Bush Pasture Park Arts Festival, they would have a little booth. And again, they just do a lot of education and outreach on landscape architecture, and specifically different Lord Inscriber designs, as again, very prominent female landscape architects in a time when there were not many.
And they currently care for the historic gardens at Deepwood.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but you started telling me about it, they started to sound familiar. I do remember them from Deepwood. Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, and the house, the house that is the gardens is Gady Hollow,
Yes.
Which is across from Bush on Mission. And that's not open. It's open to the public, but not like every day. And I believe that was, like you said, the home, but also offices.
Yes, I was shooting from the hip a little bit there, so I'm glad I didn't say anything. I was watching Kimberly's face,
Sounded good.
Furiously shake her head. I'll stop. Yeah, are there any other ideas for other projects that are out there? So I guess, Kimberly, do we need to agree on this tonight, or?
Well, so officially, Patty and Carol are on the subcommittee for the awards, but we've got Historic Preservation Month next month. And I feel like, it's a little bit later on our agenda to talk about, subcommittee reports. And so it's really entirely up to you as a commission. You in the past have given awards in June. You haven't always had to do it in May. And it might hinge on what you choose to do for the photo contest, because I know that's all, we're going to discuss that as well. If you want to do all the awards at once, that's perfectly fine. It's your it's your thing. I think that, I also kind of wanted to, Tracy, you and I had talked a little bit about the virtual historic preservation fair. I think that if we're not going to do awards, there's lots of other things that we can do.
Right.
To celebrate the month. So again, it's your call, what you want to do. There's no have to.
That's good. So do any commissioners have strong opinions or preferences about kind of how we want to do things? Do we want to all go out and do some sleuthing and maybe gather a few more nominees, or are we, and then discuss an award at the May meeting, or are we ready to kind of go? Maybe Carol and Patty, if you guys have thoughts on as members of the subcommittee.
I'm happy considering the ones that staff have mentioned, and we could have, if I would ask, I guess, if the commission had any other input, as you said, or other ideas, but maybe we could have our subcommittee could meet via Zoom and discuss before our next meeting.
I agree. I'm happy to rely on staff's recommendation. I guess what I would say is I'm fine if Carol and I meet as a subcommittee, but my only addition to that would be is if other members of the commission have ideas, if you could let us know before that subcommittee happens so we can kind of actually have a productive one. So I guess a strategic question would be for Kimberly and Zach's perspective is when do you need the subcommittee's recommendation to make it into the packet? And then that would tell us when we would need everybody else's opinion for the subcommittee meeting to happen, if we could kind of like work the timeline backwards. But I would rather have commission input before we meet as a subcommittee so that we can make sure we get everybody's thoughts involved.
Right, so it's the week before our meeting. So in May, that's May 20th, so May 13th.
Okay.
But I would like it May 12th.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, May 13th at 5 o'clock. No, Zach's like, no.
Okay, so Zach needs his stuff by May 12th. So Carol, if you and I and staff tried to meet sometime the week of, let's say, May 3rd, if commissioners could get, I'm sensitive to not having a serial meeting via email. So if commissioners could get their thoughts to, sorry, I teach on this all the time, to Kimberly or Zach
Yes.
by April 30th, that's 2 weeks. Would that work? And then Carol and I could try and have a meeting sometime the week of May 3rd.
I think that sounds great.
That's good. And we might have Commissioner Schwartz join us too. We'll see.
Be happy to crash the party, the subcommittee. Yeah. All right. So that sounds great. Is everyone, I don't think there's an action item, so I'll just kind of state it. So yeah, everyone please send Kimberly and Zach any ideas you have for all 4 of the awards, or just kind of general projects maybe that you like. They could also go to individuals or organizations that you've been impressed with through the last year. And so, yeah, if you have questions about the specifics of the award or what they're intended for, Kimberly or Zach can definitely answer those. So by April 30th, we will send Kimberly and Zach our individual recommendations for the subcommittee to consider, and then report back at the May meeting, and we'll make the decisions and award then.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Are we ready to go to the cultural landscape presentation, Carol?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to pass it on to Commissioner Cottingham for an amazing presentation on cultural landscapes in celebration of Landscape Architecture Month.
That's right. So I had my muting snafu earlier. I'm logged back in. Oh man, I thought I had this ready. So I'm logged in here twice because I'm talking on my phone because it works best for Zoom, and sharing from a laptop. And I thought I was ready. So, well, I'll start while I'm getting the screen share to work. So I'm speaking today because I was invited to talk somewhat about cultural landscapes. I believe, Kimberly, you said it was Cultural Landscape Month from the was it the American Society of Landscape Architects, or I can't remember who.
Yeah, it's April is World Landscape Architecture Month, and that is, what is that organization? ASLA. I don't know what that stands for. ASLA.
Yeah, it's American Society of Landscape
Architects. I'm swearing. Yeah. Okay.
And oh, now it's not sharing. So the what I'm going to do tonight is kind of give a relatively brief or higher level just description of what a cultural landscape is, as far as there we go. As far as a cultural resource, because we all, as has been discussed, we all have a different backgrounds. Okay. Let me know when you can see it. going to share the whole desktop here. Okay.
It's loading. Yep, I can see it.
And it's slow. Okay. There we go. So, so I thought I'd give a high-level overview. Again, we are all here because we're on Historic Landmark Commission for a city. So we have specific duties and things we do in that role. We have different backgrounds as members from our careers and education, knowledge of architecture, preservation, etc. So I'll keep it kind of fun, where we'll talk about the high level, what is a cultural landscape, what does that mean, and then kind of get into the examples of how it's actually used as a tool for preservation or something in those terms, such as what we do here. And that's a painting, that's not a cultural landscape. All right, so cultural landscapes. So the first two pieces of this that I thought I'd cover is sort of the what is it and why do we care? And again, if we were just sitting around talking or writing an article or at a conference, we could go all different kinds of ways with what is or isn't, or what it does or does not mean. But to keep it in the context of actual sort of preservation as something that's actionable, in conserving or protecting resources, I went and used here's from the National Park Service's brief about how to protect these. And as you can see there, it says, cultural landscape is a geographic area including both cultural and natural resources and associated with historic event, activity, person, or exhibiting other cultural aesthetic values. So again, there's a lot of ways that this could be discussed. There's a lot of different examples. And I will walk through what the main parts of that are. But the other piece is sort of why do we care about these things? You know, is it a park? Is it the view from a plantation? Is it an agricultural setting? In terms of actual, again, application or practice, the key things with cultural landscapes are that there are ways to provide context and complex interpretation. So with some of the first in the 60s, as part of the preservation movements, some of the first times that cultural landscapes were coming up were ways to protect view sheds. Specifically, one of the first big examples of that was from Mount Vernon. And then also things like battlefields. So first it's like, oh, how do we protect this like large, how do we acknowledge this? What's the boundary of this thing that we're associating? And sort of the older school version of historic preservation of, you know, literally George Washington slept here, George Washington battled here, etc. And then cultural landscapes also add, it says protect natural cultural resources. So it's also a way to sort of meld that if you're protecting something such as a site or a place that's an experience, what are the things that make it? So good photo. And I should say too, these are all photos that I've taken from the internet, so don't reproduce them. But here of the Columbia River Gorge, you can't just have a site without the setting. So that kind of idea. And then finally, it's looking at that connection between natural and human environment. So, in all places that aren't just, some truly, truly wild place, when we're talking about historic preservation, and when we're talking about things, whether it's, government entities or nonprofits that talk about preservation and protecting, interpreting resources, there's always somewhere on a spectrum of that, this is something that's reflecting the way that people have impacted the environment around them. And just chime in or interrupt if you have questions. Okay, so 4 common types. And again, I'm tiering most of the things that I'm going to share out of sort of the overarching guidance and so technical guidance and all of the sort of accessory technical guidance and articles and things that have been produced from National Park Service. There's also several foundations and people in landscape architecture have contributed as well to how these things might be interpreted and applied. But so when we're talking about cultural landscapes and moving to how we're gonna address them, they're often gonna require some sort of cultural landscape plan, cultural landscape management plan, those sorts of things. And within that, you're defining things within these types, which are historic site, historic design landscape, historic vernacular landscapes, and ethnographic landscapes. And I should have been more clever. I should have had you guys like have to guess what these different places are too. But that's the, this photo is the view from Mount Vernon across the Potomac. So this is a situation where they invested in preserving the other view. So when you're sitting outside of George Washington's Mount Vernon, you're looking out and there's hardly any development. All right, so the definitions, first of all, excuse me, historic site. So historic sites are cultural, and this is a cultural landscape too, I just dropped that from here, is looking at places that are significant for their association with a historic event or activity or person. I included an obvious picture of a battlefield because battlefields are one of the areas that have a lot of invested interest and support for conserving. And there's many places, particularly in the US with the American Civil War, where lots of resources have gone in to protect large areas that are significant for their relationship with the historic event of the Civil War. Other examples of where the context or the type of cultural landscape would be in this area is, again, when it's something like on larger estates, such as, like I said, common in plantations, as well as other sort of estates that have gardens, etc. Although we'll get into that with the next type, which is historic design landscapes. This is a picture from Lord and Shriver here in Salem. So historic design landscapes, the definition here, consciously designed or laid out, and I cut out, it includes by, famous or very significant landscape architects, planners, or designers, following specific design principles, setting those design principles, or in sort of a recognized style or tradition. So this includes landscapes such as this Lord and Shriver garden, which is rather small, or also historic design landscapes that are relatively famous and many people know would be some of the city beautiful parks, Olmsted parks, and things like that. And again, it always gets fuzzy if you're really doing sort of a cultural landscape survey or something like that. You're not really just tying it to a type. You're really just describing the meaning. Because I believe the next one is the vernacular landscape. So historic vernacular landscapes are, again, I have part of the quote, they're evolved through use by people whose activities or occupancies shape that landscape. So these are not designed, or not designed at least in a sort of an aesthetic purpose. But these are generally sites such as this agricultural site, this is in Hawaii, or sometimes there's industrial sites that still exist. If you've been to Seattle's gaswork parks. And also sometimes the landscape can also be designed into a historic neighborhood. Although typically this would be something where it's not just, you know, said neighborhood in the 30s is laid out with bungalow homes, et cetera, et cetera. But usually when it's a really specific thing, such as the Pullman neighborhood in Chicago, which was all built by the Pullman cable car company, and it has all of these very specific features, not just of the architecture, but how the whole community is laid out. And I apologize, I have someone here who's wished I was going to be done more quickly. And then the other category from the 4 main types is ethnographic landscapes. And these are landscapes that contain a variety of natural culture resources associated with people defined as heritage resources. So there are a lot of ways to, again, that this might be the type that would form the framework for assessing or kind of deciding the boundaries and the associations of the cultural landscape. But these can include, again, these aren't all perfect, nothing's a perfect fit. These could include, you know, sort of agricultural areas, depending on the communities and the reasons why those communities exist or were there. But they can also sort of look into more natural landscapes or seemingly natural landscapes that still have characteristics about them or pieces of them that, you know, reflect indigenous or other resources. And this picture is actually from in the Chesapeake Bay region. And I specifically chose it. It's from where I used to work, where we used ethnographic landscape, or we actually used a term in our planning documents about indigenous cultural landscape to illustrate natural looking areas that would be highly evocative or representative of the resources and things that were being used in context of other things on the site, which were associated with the period of contact, early contact in this case. And again, these are not tools that just mean, oh, this is such and such landscape, and therefore it's you know, put on, designated as a resource and protected it perpetually. It's more of a way to sort of tell the story and support other resources around it. Okay, so strategies for preservation. Again, I'm sort of saying this before, but the main thing is that having a cultural landscape, and not just as an academic topic, but as something that would sort of be applicable. It's, again, starts with survey and analysis, and much the same way that from a basic level, similar to how neighborhoods might be identified as historic districts. So you're defining patterns, boundaries, and relationships to resources, you know, defining the significance both as a use and time period. As far as how things that might actually be preserved or protected, again, sometimes it's an overlay of something that's already protected because it's already a park or a privately protected historic resource or cultural resource. And then the other tool that's been used quite a bit, both as a standalone, but sort of as an accessory, is easements and trusts. So creating either preservation or conservation easements and trusts to protect or limit the changes to land use that might impact the elements of the cultural landscape. And then finally, above all, just like with historic structures, sort of the maintenance and interpretation. Cultural landscapes are often a way to convey a little more complex interpretation of sites. Again, thinking of some of our early, we're going to preserve this, famous person's plantation house. Cultural landscapes are sometimes ways to talk about all of the other impacts of a plantation, all of the other stories of the plantation, things like that. And then there are also ways to, again, interpret how the land developed before, or why the site is where it is. I have an example on here. Yes. So one large scale example that I put in that I think is pretty interesting was Evie's Landing up in Washington. NHR, I think it's a, I can't remember what NHR stands.
National Historic Reserve.
Reserve, that's the word. So that's a situation where it was like a really large scale thing. And by Natural Historic Reserve, they still kept a lot of it privately owned and managed by community, and still allowed for some of that, but protecting the open space. And in that case, agriculture is a historic resource. And then I can't remember what else here. Oh, Bush Pasture Park. So this is not the definitive on Bush Pasture Park, but Kimberly had asked me to talk about the park and some other resources in Salem. And so right now the city itself is doing a whole, not a cultural landscape plan, but a whole park plan, which includes some of these elements. But again, just the things that the park itself has that maintains, maybe not as a standalone resource, but as a whole sort of set and setting for the resources such as the house that are already there, are a way to really tell the story of the land use, because the property was not developed, residential or otherwise. There's huge areas that might be evocative of agricultural uses. And then you also have some of those natural elements that, of course, growing and changing over time. But as we spoke about earlier tonight with the Oregon white oaks, there's significant white oak savanna, as well as the regrowth of camas and other resources like that. Also, all of the Lord and Shriver gardens. I mean, that could be a presentation in and of itself, but include tons of things that, again, it's not just, oh, this is significant because of the design, but as was mentioned earlier, it's also like, it's the design, it's also the role that those women had at the time, and sort of the whole context. And I think that was it. Yes. Oh, and then I have these resources because I will send this around too. If people want to dig in, there's a lot more, and you can get very specific, especially if it was something that was going to be sort of applied to a cultural resource management plan or things like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carol. That was incredible. I used to live in Coopville, which is the heart of Evie's Reserve. So that was really exciting. I was like, oh, I know where that is. So that was
good.
That was awesome. And yeah, if you could share that and the resources with everyone, incredible. If anyone else has any topics or passions, I don't know, maybe if you happen to work at the state archives and you'd be curious in giving a presentation, we're like, yeah, that was great, Carol. You set the bar really high for everyone to follow. So did anyone have any questions for Commissioner Cottingham?
I had a quick one involving okay, we were talking about Bush Park, and Bush Park seems to be kind of central to kind of what's going on today. And you kind of mentioned it. Could you go into a little bit more explanation as to what is happening or could happen, or maybe is just in the hopes and dreams potentially of the city involving that chunk of land and the concept of historic or like a natural area or a property?
Commissioner Fuller jumping ahead to your committee update too.
Oh, great. All right.
Yeah, no, I think that we're gonna get, maybe Kimberly can help me out here. I think that we're gonna get an update from Parks on that sometime.
Yeah, Patty, I'll jump in. So Patty, I was just talking to Patty, she's our Parks Planning Manager. And they are gonna come in June to update the commission directly. They are working on a draft plan, as I understand it, and are just gonna wanna present the initial findings and get some feedback. So that'll be in June.
And I'll add that probably because I made my presentation at night and not like during the day when I could take glorious pictures or something. If people haven't or don't visit Bush Park regularly, you really should go sometime really soon. If you want to see how amazing the Camas is, it's like at peak beauty right now. So, but yeah, I think that would be the best step for giving you an update on in general what that plan is. And that's not just as cultural resource, that's an overall park management plan.
Awesome. And for anyone watching on YouTube, I think Commissioner Cottingham just gave you a historic photo contest idea, some Camas and a historic landscape. We'd love to see that submitted. Are there any other questions for Commissioner Cottingham on his presentation? Well, yeah, thank you again, Carol, for doing that in your free time. That was awesome. And it's so nice to see that we're incorporating cultural landscapes into our commission a lot more. So it was a great overview and the definitions were awesome. So with that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all. Yeah, thank you. I get the one last thing that I was going to mention when I brought up again, with Park Service sort of framework out there, the Indigenous cultural landscape, which I mentioned, which I know from my work in the Chesapeake Bay, there currently is a piece of work, a body of work or study, or I'm not sure what the outcome is exactly, but in the Northwest, using the same thing along the Northwest coast, and that's being done with tribes and some other entities. So I don't know. All I know is that that's happened. I don't know if that's ever going to become public, but so there's good stuff happening out there.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you. So with that, we will move into work plan assignments and updates. I think let's start with the photo contest update and then take it away, Kimberly.
Oh, no. That'll be, I'm going to turn it over to Zach. So
Zach.
Kind of update. Sorry.
Yeah. You're good.
I'm like, not me.
Sorry. Go for it, Zach.
So our photo contest is technically closed. It closed on Monday. And before we left for the weekend, we had only gotten, I think, 5 submissions from 3 people. But now we have 16 official submissions from, I think, 9 or 10 people. However, there was someone who used our hashtag on Instagram, but didn't actually fill out the form with the photo release and actually entering the contest. So I reached out to them and asked, do you want to submit these photos? I haven't heard back yet, but potentially they have 9 more photos. So it could be, we could have 25 entries if that person follows through. Otherwise, we are at 16 photos currently. So last year, the commission got 36 photos, and it was an extended deadline. So if the commission would like to try to get more photos, we can extend the deadline, reopen that, and ask, do another call for submissions. I did talk to our the person who does our social media promotion. I don't remember her official title today, but I did talk to her, and it was shared on Facebook and posted in a newsletter I have it on a post-it note somewhere, but I think it might be the post-it note that my camera is currently sitting on. And
No worries.
And Lori, our youth coordinator, she did mention she shot it out to her contacts in the youth world.
Yeah. The only thing that we normally do that wasn't done this time was we will normally do a press release. So that's the only piece of publicity that didn't happen this year as opposed to previous years. So if we do extend the deadline, we can again share on Facebook, put in the newsletter, Twitter, Instagram, which is where it has already been shared. But we could, in addition to that, we could do a press release. So that's all dependent on what the committee wants to do. If you're happy with the 16 photos, I do have them all on my computer and I can share them just really quickly. I don't think we want to have a full discussion. Maybe you do want to have a full discussion, but I can just breeze through them very quickly if you want to just have a visual idea of what we've already collected, if the committee wants that.
Yeah, I mean, do any commissioners have a strong opinion about extending the deadline? I mean, if we did it last year, anyone? Yeah, Commissioner Kerdeman.
How many? So we extended it last year, I'm guessing because of lack of submissions. Do we remember how many submittals we had at that time?
I do not remember, but I have this folder open and I can look.
I'm just curious on how this year compares to last year.
Well, Zach is looking. Commissioner Mulvihill, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and this is my personality just coming out. I'm not a huge fan normally of extending deadlines for contests because I believe there are rules and there are winners and losers, but that's my competitive nature. And my understanding was part of the reason why we may have extended it last year was because it was the beginning of a global pandemic and everybody was still getting their feet wet. We've been in this pandemic for a year now. But that's just my personality. Like there's rules and we should follow them, but I won't object if everybody else wants to continue them because I recognize it's an inappropriate competitive vibe on my part.
No, I'm here for it. I love it. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you mentioning that because that was my knee-jerk reaction. And so this is my softening the blow, find more support for my, no, we're not extending it answer.
Yeah. You're kinder than the lawyer in the group. That's all I can say.
Awesome. Are there any, I mean, we totally can, 16 is a great number and it sounds like we might have 9 more. Hopefully that hashtagger will want to enter them. And so it'll definitely make for a quicker May meeting. Did anyone want to kind of maybe have Zach scroll through really fast? I'm fine with closing it and moving on, but Commissioner Zimmerman, Commissioner Thomas, I think you're there. Sorry, I keep forgetting to check in with you because I know you don't have your video on or the new commissioners. Commissioner Zimmerman.
What I was gonna say, I was kind of curious with the 16 in terms of how they're kind of put out there. Do we have like 10 of them in one category and like 2 in another? Do we have an adequate amount in each of the categories where we could make a choice? Like if there's 4 for, a specific category, or are we looking at like 1 for,
Sure.
pets or something like that?
So in the spreadsheet I sent out yesterday, I do have them color coded, but there's a couple of caveats. So first I will say, as submitted, we only have 1 for historic interior, and we have 3 for selfies/pet photos, quite a few for historic exterior and historic landscape, but they are very limited. And then there's one thing that I didn't think about. I just copied the questions from last year and I didn't realize that one of our questions is, are you 18 or younger? And most people, I think, when they see are you 18, they assume it's are you 18 or older. So I have some contestants who I know are younger than 18 say, no, I'm not 18 or younger. And then I have some contestants who I know are older than 18 say, yes, I am 18 or younger. So I'm not sure about the age range for the age categories. So I am going to send an email to the participants. And then there's a couple of people who submitted something in one category that I believe fits a different category. So there's someone who submitted a historic landscape that I believe is an interior because it's the interior of a greenhouse. So I think that they just miscategorized it, but want to double check with them that they're in the correct category. So to answer your question, there in our interiors, there's only one photo currently, so there would just be the one photo, but there is some selection in some of the categories.
Yeah, sorry about that. I realized once I was looking through my email notes, it's like, oh, I saw that, but it slipped my mind. But I appreciate the feedback about those. I think if we have enough to make a sufficient vote, I can definitely understand Commissioner Mulvihill and Kurteman's line of thinking that, we had a deadline and we got 16, potentially 25. We vote on those 16 or 25.
And then to answer an earlier question, I did pull up last year's survey results or contest results, and we had 24 before the deadline and 36 after the extended deadline. So if the person who submitted on Instagram does want to complete their submission, then we would have a similar number to last year before the deadline.
Is there any other comments, Kimberly?
So this is a separate question setting apart from whether to extend the deadline. So I don't know if you want me to ask my question or wait until you make a decision about that.
I think let's make a deadline decision. And I think one thing I would say is we consider the deadline and like how many we have in each category. The categories aren't set in stone. We can always change the categories each year, choose not to award in a category is my understanding of the contest. So Kimberly, is that okay if we choose to do that when we?
Well, that goes to my question.
Oh, okay.
Maybe ask about the deadline. Like,
okay. I was letting people know that like if someone's worried, like, oh, we don't have any interiors, that might be okay. So yeah, so it sounds like we're maybe leaning towards just sticking to our deadline. All right, I'm not seeing anyone.
Oh, sorry, I did get Kelly's having issues with their microphone. So
Okay.
They sent me a message that says that they are okay with the deadline extension, but it just says, I am okay with a deadline extension. It does not necessarily say I advocate a deadline extension.
Okay.
So I don't know what entirely that means, but word for word is I'm okay with a deadline extension.
Okay. Well, I will try to buy a little more time for Kelly to maybe type out a little bit more to you. But it sounds like we're leaning towards probably no extension. I am glad, Kimberly, to hear that we did do some publicity. I have to say, I didn't see a lot of that. That might just be on me that I don't follow the right Twitter accounts. But like I didn't notice it on the city's Facebook page. And so maybe just notes for next year. And obviously things will be a little different, but maybe like doing the press release, maybe that is more important than we realized. And
yeah.
And maybe a little bit more like Facebook traffic and advertising. So just something I think for the city to take note of. I'm glad they offer us the social media support. That's really good. And also I know we've been struggling to get our newsletter out the door, which is probably another avenue we would have hit some of our prime like historic preservation people with that newsletter. And I know Zach's been struggling with that. So just maybe notes for next year about the advertisement. Did Kelly type anything else in, or are we ready to?
Kelly has said if someone else advocates for it, he's okay with the deadline extension. Otherwise, he's okay to close the contest.
Okay. So I don't think, do we need an action item for this? Or, I mean, we're just agreeing to the rules as we originally had them. So
Commissioner Zimmerman does have his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yes. No, I don't have that card open. Yes, Commissioner Zimmerman.
Yeah, I was just going to say one of the things that I ended up doing before the deadline was putting a shout out on our HLC stuff, our outlets to get people to put in things. And I'm thinking that maybe next year, one of the things that we can do is maybe just kind of build it up a little bit more throughout the entire contest, like a number of posts a week, maybe of previous winners or something like that, just to kind of get that bug out there. And maybe we can, it's been mentioned about like a press release, we send something to the Statesman or to the Salem Reporter specifically, just so they can, flood it out there too. And now that schools are back in session, maybe we could do some outreach or something to some of the high schools that have, photo clubs or something like that, just to kind of, prime the pump a little bit about it, in the next, in the fall, say, hey, we've got this photo contest, this historic photo contest in the spring, to keep in mind and look for. So maybe we can just be a little more aggressive with the outreach come summer and fall.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. So awesome. So Kimberly, your question.
So my question, and so this is going to reflect my personality, which is all about process and also trying to not have really long meetings. So I am wondering whether or not the commission might be okay with doing some sort of, and Zach will have to help me. All I remember is monkey, like a survey, some sort of survey monkey way of voting for what your favorite photo is before the meeting, so that we can have that information and we don't have to spend all the meeting time doing that voting. I know last year, again, the pandemic was new. We were trying out a new thing, which I can't remember what it was now, but all I remember it was hard. And we were trying to do that voting in the meeting. So I'm just wondering if the commission might be supportive of doing that sometime in the next month or so, since we've closed it, so that then we can come to the meeting with those results already.
Makes sense to me, sure.
Commissioner Kerdeman.
I'd like to ask Commissioner Moldhill, I know you mentioned last time a couple of good points you made about discussing the photos during the meeting, and would voting ahead, would that precede what the committee would be doing already, or is, anyway, I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so my understanding is we agreed that we weren't going to have the committee make recommendations. We were just going to do it as a whole landmarks commission. So that kind of eliminated my concern of doing it twice. My question for the city attorney would be is, can we vote in advance of the meeting? Is that permissible?
No.
Not to put you on
That's
the
a good
spot.
question.
We'll get into that.
Well, it wouldn't be their official vote, though. It would be like to
Right.
say what their favorites are, and then they would officially
Right.
have a motion and vote at the meeting on who they're giving the awards to.
Yeah.
It would be like
That would be fine.
And it would also create a record of how everyone voted and when, and we would have an official record of that as
Right.
well.
And we would present the tabulations at the meeting. That would be fine.
Yay.
What I would do is I would, have the votes go to Zachary. And so that people wouldn't know how other people voted on things.
Okay.
I imagine that what Kim is suggesting is creating some sort of online survey where no one sees anyone else's responses and all of the responses just automatically get sent to me at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep thinking it's Survey Monkey, but I feel like it's Survey Gizmo. I don't know. There's a weird name.
It's no longer called Survey Gizmo. It's called Alchemer or something like that. So we can ignore that.
Okay.
Commissioner Mulvihill.
So if it's legal, I like that idea. My only request would be as more of a, not necessarily a kind of a consensus on our part, that if it's, so we have 16, so let's say there's 5 photos in a category. And if we kind of agree, like, we're only going to discuss the top 2. And if yours isn't one of the top 2, we don't then bring it up. So we end up basically eliminating the entire purpose behind the survey. So whatever our consensus is, look, we're going to take the top 2 and only the top 2. If my photo isn't in the top 2, I just shut up about it and move forward. Or else I don't want to do the survey. I'm not going to lie. I don't mean any difficult, but I don't want to do it twice.
Yeah. No, that's fair. It's the person who probably was the most vocal about, like, my photo didn't make it and a photo of the Capitol did make it. I get a chair's pick this year, so you don't have to worry about me derailing the process. But yeah, I guess, is that something that we all feel comfortable kind of, that the consensus kind of rules all as we're doing sort of the final selection?
Absolutely, yeah.
Commissioner Ponce, did you have something earlier? Sorry.
No, I was just kind of agreeing with the sentiment there. I think that closing it and doing the survey, having an anonymous works good for me.
Tom. Uh-oh.
And I know everyone understands this, but I have to say it for the record that, you know, we can do this Survey Monkey for something like this, but for any sort of, you know, hearings or, you know, official things, this wouldn't, it wouldn't be the right way to do that. Okay.
Loud and clear, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. So is there any other comments or thoughts on doing the survey and then consensus that we will all, I don't know, follow the results of the survey? Has Kelly shared anything with you, Zach?
Kelly has not shared anything with me.
Awesome. And so hearing nothing else, I think we have a path forward. So photo contest is closed. Zach will send us out a Survey Monkey. We will all take it by ourselves, and then we will discuss the results and vote on those results at the May meeting for the contest. Yes, Commissioner Mulvihill.
Kimberly, what do you want me to do with the awards or the prizes? Am I buying them and you're reimbursing me? How am I doing that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, you asked that like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
And
that's my own, I just want to be
Get
prepared.
back to you. I feel like I asked, well, let's follow up after the meeting because
Okay, perfect.
I know I asked Tom, but I can't remember what he said. And so we'll follow up with you.
Okay, yeah, just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. I just don't want to, I don't want to lose, I don't want you guys to issue awards and everybody look at me and be like, I don't know, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, we'll follow up. I apologize. I dropped that stitch. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any other, let's see, ooh, shoot, I just opened something. Are there any other committee updates or work assignments, work plan assignments? Kimberly.
I'm going to share my screen really briefly. I know it's getting late and everyone wants to go, but Zach did a nice job sending out our complete sort of work plan. And I just wanted to highlight where we do have a need so that our new folks, so Steve already volunteered. I'm totally putting Brett on the spot here, but we really just have a need in 2 areas. And I can't even remember, Tracy, if you even volunteered for helping with technical training. I just signed you up for that. And then I also signed Andy up for so sharing on social media spotlights on potential historic resources. So and really, Steve, you can sign up for more than one. I know that, you know, you're still brand new to the commission, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to do something that we need help with. So I just wanted to share that. You don't have to decide today. You have the full list, but I just wanted to share with the group where we have a need.
Good to know. Yeah, I was curious about that. I seconded Steve's opinion of feeling like I might be too junior on something to be able to assist in necessarily what, but I'm very curious and very interested. So the areas that you had just highlighted.
Did I already stop sharing too quickly? Yeah, it's technical training. So the staff is really looking at doing a welcome packet for new homeowners, and then also organizing a homeowners forum, like a way for property owners to talk with each other about their successes and also challenges with owning a historic property. So that's kind of one area. And then the other area is finding a way to share the stories and spotlight some potential historic resources. So kind of like what Carol was talking about. He did a great job doing like the different kinds of landscapes, but really one of the goals that we have is first identifying and then working with property owners to protect, which is in our case designating historic resources. So one of the ways we thought to do that was just through sharing cool stories. So
yeah, absolutely. I could certainly get behind that. You know, working on social histories and things like that is a lot of fun for me. So yeah.
Cool. Well, we can follow up through email, but I just wanted to share that during this discussion. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
Sorry, we'll finish that up and then I have a thing.
Okay, I was just saying, yeah, thank you for that. And also, if anyone saw another committee that they're interested in joining, I'm sure Kimberly will happily take those comments as well. So cool. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, Zach.
So I got a message from Kelly about the grant that we just submitted. We wanted to thank everyone, or thank the HLC for the letter of support for the Travel Oregon grant. We submitted that 2 weeks ago. And we should hear back by the end of the month, but we requested a total amount of, I think, $72,000, I think, with signage and labor and all that jazz. So this is to complement a walking tour with some signage in our historic districts and some interpretive panels.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. And then do you want to go into the newsletter assignments?
Sure, yeah. So newsletter update. So we're behind schedule on the spring one because as I mentioned in our last meeting, we are switching over to MailChimp, which is a service that the city uses for newsletters and things. But I didn't get my login until last week. So so I have a draft. I need just a couple more photos, and then I think it's ready to go. So looking to put in just a few more pieces, and then that'll go out. And then our summer newsletter will go out in June is the plan, and that will highlight our awards for the year. But also, I was thinking potentially as a focal point, since we're looking at the awards, that maybe our articles could be about some of the things that are featured in the photos. So we have photos of the Capitol. We have photos of some things with the fairgrounds, with Bush Park, and Gilbert House, the soapbox derby, the footbridge that goes over to West Salem. Yeah, so if I was thinking potentially, and one of a train. But I was thinking that potentially if we had any content on one of the subjects of the photos, that could be a good article. And then if Patty has done any more travel and wants to write about more places that you visited, that would also be exciting.
I have an idea since it's the summer issue. So I know a lot of people, particularly like on the weekends, will take a drive over to like one of the coastal cities like Newport or Lincoln City to spend a day at the beach and kind of focusing on some of the historic resources there. There's a cool hotel in Newport. It was originally called the Cliff House. I don't know what it is now. Anyway, it doesn't have any electronics. It doesn't have TVs or radios. It's all books, and it's meant so that you understand what it was like when it was, originally constructed. And it's, have you been there? Yeah. So I was thinking something maybe like that, like, if you want to do like a historic overnight in like Newport, like here's this cool hotel and here's some like national red. I don't think they have a local historic designation process in Newport, but they've got a couple on the National Register. So I could do something like that if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. You should do a regular article.
Well, I can't do anything technical. I can do absolutely nothing technical that the rest of you do, no, but I travel all over the state and I'm happy to take pretty pictures.
I think things to do on, where to go. I think that's cool.
Okay. I'll do something on the coast then.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you, Patty. And then maybe is it fair if we kind of see what our photo contest winners are and then we can assign the June articles? I know that'll be kind of a short turnaround for everyone, but I guess if you really have a favorite, you could start writing something about it when you see them. So perfect. All right. That's great. One idea I did have, I would like to see if we can make coloring sheets for some of our historic buildings, like the Supreme Court, maybe like West Salem City Hall, Reed Opera House, maybe like the State Hospital or the Dome Building, Union Street Railroad Bridge. And maybe we could include those in the newsletter and people could print them out, or I know there's a way to do that on Photoshop, but
I don't know. So I'm not sure about copyright, but we have, oh my gosh, I think they're called the Eubank prints. They were on the wall in the library. And I think actually, Lisa, they might be in the lobby of the PAC Center. Anyway, we have the digital versions. I think I would have to double check if we are allowed to do that, but they're like line drawings and they would be really cool to color as coloring sheets. And they're really beautiful. And they are of exactly what you're talking about, the Capitol, Deepwood, Bush House, all those places already done. So,
And maybe we could print them out and give them to some of our downtown businesses to pass out to people. Maybe
I'll check into that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, honestly. I think that's people love to color, people of all ages, and being able to take something like that and give it to downtown businesses, especially as more and more people get vaccines, more and more people are going out, more and more people are going out with their children, like summertime is going to be a completely different world compared to last year's summer. So great idea. I think it's an excellent idea.
And we can put on the back, get ready for our 2022 historic cupcake building competition.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I saw pictures of those, Patty, I was looking for that after you.
It was a big deal. Like they have this huge ceremony in City Hall and we'd have
Very
like
cool.
catered food. It was people took it freaking seriously. It was a big deal.
Yes, we're stealing that. So, all right, Kimberly, if there's no other discussion items, let's do the Historic Preservation Officer report.
Okay, cool. I'll try to be fast. So you probably got an email, I hope you did, about the Oregon Heritage Summit and Excellence Awards, which are on the 29th and 30th. And also, I just wanted to point out that on the 29th, there's a Hispanic Heritage Preservation Building a Network session that's free. If you have any interest in that, I would encourage you to sign up for that. And then the city of Salem, so myself and several other members of our Salem's Chinese community are participating in a virtual panel as part of this Hidden Histories virtual online series that's being sponsored by the Oregon Humanities and Portland Chinatown Museum and SULA, Southern Oregon University, Chelsea Rose. So that'll be on the 24th at 11. If you're interested in that, we can send you the link. And then just a little bit of an update. So I know a lot of you may have noticed, and Tracy was asking about the cherry trees on the Capitol Mall that suffered some damage. I did talk to Chris Havel. He can provide more detailed report. They're working on that now. It could have been worse. I heard that a lot about the ice storm, that it could have been worse, but they did suffer damage. And then I also just wanted to mention that the city has developed a roadmap for limited reopening. But generally, when the Oregon Health Authority shows that Marion and Polk counties are at low risk, combined with everyone getting vaccines, then we'll look at reopening. And just how that matters to you for the Landmarks Commission, we would start meeting again in person after City Council moves to in-person meetings, but not before. And something to think on is that we may be moving forward, be including the ability for folks who want to testify that they can do it online virtually, because there's currently a bill at the Ledge where they're considering adopting that. And so last, I want to say congratulations to Zach. He got married on April 4th. So yay, Zach.
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
Love your cat. Congrats, Zach. Really,
Congratulations.
Yes. Kimberly, speaking of legislative updates, can we get an update on the Senate Bill 108, the special assessment?
Yeah. I don't have any idea. Aren't I terrible? Yes.
I don't think it's moved anywhere near out of committee, but I know we had concerns about losing the residential part.
I never heard back. And I think Chrissy did testify, but I don't know that. Yeah, I haven't heard anything lately. Yeah, perfect. I will follow up and see when I can find out.
Awesome. Commissioner Kurdeman.
I haven't looked into this at all, but as things start opening up, is there any kind of, I'm not going to term this right, so I apologize, lawyers. Is there any way to, is it illegal or legal or not encouraged in state buildings to ask folks to show their vaccine card before entering? Like, how is that gonna look? Does anyone know, or is everything like this kind of so new?
Attorneys in the room. I don't think you can, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I feel like HIPAA protects your privacy. You don't have, that's my understanding.
It's really unclear at this point. Probably not. There's a lot of controversy about using the vaccine cards as passports. And so there would have to be a decision made that, you know, these cards would be used in that way, or some other card that would be developed to allow that. But currently, I don't think there's any plan in place to require that. I think the general assumption is that you treat everybody as though they're not vaccinated, and you keep the protocols in place.
Yeah, Jessica, one thing we've been kind of getting told, I don't know if this helps you, is because the vaccine's just still under emergency authorization, the rules are kind of unclear versus like those other vaccines that are approved normally. I don't know if that helps answer, and I don't have a better answer other than just it's in, I think, a gray area as a vaccine.
I honestly wasn't expecting a crystal clear answer. I would have been shocked if there was one, but I just figured I'd bring it up as just a thing that hold on, please. You want some water? Something that's come up in a couple other things where I've seen posted like you need to show your vaccine card in order to attend this event, that sort of thing. So I wasn't sure how high of a level that would be taken. So.
No, that's a good question, and things for us, to keep thinking about as in person seems more real. So awesome. Are there any other discussion items or questions for staff? All right, I know we went 2 hours tonight, so if there are no other items, we will adjourn.
Love your gavel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys all. Sorry, Commissioner Thomas, about the technology issues.